Why is Gojo Satoru so popular amongst the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase? And to be fair, it's not just the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase, but anime fans in general can't help but love Gojo. You can see in the anime reaction videos on YouTube, whether it's episode 7 or episode 20 of Jujutsu Kaisen, that everyone is screaming their lungs out whenever Gojo does something epic, especially in episode 20 when you see him appear out of nowhere in the middle of the episode just dominating all the cursed spirits and all the cursed users. And when he eventually used his ace technique, the Hollow Purple, even Hanami, one of the main antagonists of the story up to this point, was saying, "I'm not arrogant enough to take on Satoru Gojo." And as a result of that attack, his body gets split in half and did major damage to the forest. It was like when Vegeta used his final flash attack against Cell. Using such a powerful attack will also damage parts of the earth as well. So the series itself knows how to hype up Gojo, but I think the reason why he's so popular boils down to 3 factors: his personality/character, his awesome power, and his character motivation, aka his endgame goal. Start off with his personality. Gojo is a very goofy character and doesn't really take himself too seriously, which we have seen in other animes, the overpowered mentor figures such as Shanks, Master Roshi and so forth. But I think what separates him from a character like Shanks is that in the rare occasion you see Shanks early on back in the East Blue saga, where Mihawk is giving Shanks the wanted poster of Luffy, Shanks is getting drunk out of his head, and it was done effectively as comedic relief. I can't lie, I was laughing out loud seeing one of the Emperors of the Sea just getting absolutely wasted. But One Piece has many goofy characters. Zoro, one of the fan favorites, has zero sense of direction, and Oda continuously takes the piss out of that. Even in the anime openings, in opening 18 of One Piece, you can clearly see Zoro walking in the background, but then Usopp started running after Zoro, making sure he doesn't get lost. Even the anime opening carries on this gag. So as you can see, no one is safe in Oda's story. Even the most badass characters like Shanks and Zoro can turn into goofballs. But in Jujutsu Kaisen, I feel the main comedic relief character is Gojo. Yes, Yuji, Nanami, Nobara, and a few others can have their funny moments, but with Gojo, it just feels like he's the funny guy in this series. Look at the entrance when he meets up with Megumi and Yuji in episode 2. He was out buying groceries and snacks whilst Megumi and Yuji were fighting off a cursed spirit. Even when he arrived in the scene, he's out taking pictures and selfies at Megumi's expense. But when he tells Yuji to let Sukuna take over his body, you see more of the charming, overconfident side of his character, as he is artfully dodging all of Sukuna's attacks. He does the best lean back in history and tells Sukuna that he will be showing off a little because his student is watching. The charisma is off the scale. You can't help but be entertained whenever he is on screen. He reminds me a lot of Lloyd Asplund from Code Geass. He's the comedic relief scientist that is responsible for creating Suzaku's Lancelot. He also happens to have silver hair and has a very suspiciously similar jacket to what Gojo wears, except Gojo's jacket is black and Lloyd's jacket is all white. Lloyd is the comedic relief for Code Geass. When Millie meets Lloyd for the first time, as it's been decided by Millie's dad that she's going to get an arranged marriage to Lloyd, as he is an earl, when Millie meets him for the first time, she's all dressed up, ready to ask serious questions about Lloyd and what his expectations are for the marriage. But then you have Lloyd straight up say, "Why draw all of this talk and conversation out? Let's just get married." Completely shocking Millie and the other characters in that scene. Or even the scene where he meets Millie inside the school and he just blurts out that Millie is his fiancée right in front of all the students and Millie's friends, completely shocking everyone, especially Rivel. Gojo has that same "I don't give a shit" attitude. Just like Lloyd, he will shock everyone with his behavior, such as the many times he humiliated Principal Yoshinobu in front of the students of the very high school that he is principal for, or even his fight against Jogo, where you can see him toying with Jogo. He destroyed Jogo's ego, calling him weak right in the middle of the fight, which shocked Jogo and all the anime onlys watching that episode for the first time. If you don't believe me, go check it out on YouTube and see everyone's shocked reaction when Gojo said that line to Jogo. But this type of attitude just adds to the comedic relief for Gojo's character. because we are seeing a character just be brutally blunt to those who deserve the harsh truth. I'm pretty sure a lot of you watching this video are in the workforce, whether it's a 9 to 5, retail or whatever. But at work, you cannot be brutally blunt to people. You can't go round and giving the harsh truth to your prick of a boss if you are unlucky enough to have a horrible boss, that is. Otherwise, there will be consequences. You can be put on a warning, be suspended, or even potentially lose your job. And the way the world is right now, we all need the money. But seeing Gojo this way, casually tormenting the villains and the most hated characters of this series, makes us love his character even more. He is doing what we can't do at our professional lives, whilst him in his professional day job as a teacher is insulting his fellow colleague. Granted, he's a principal in another school, but he's still a colleague nonetheless. Just saying to him how shit and useless he is, so satisfying and just makes for more hilarious scenes whenever Gojo is around these characters. His six eyes and limitless abilities are the second factor on why I feel Gojo is the most loved character in the series. He's just ridiculously overpowered and is the strongest character currently in the story. How many times have we seen in all the other shonen animes that the most overpowered character on the hero's side of the story don't show their true power until the endgame of the story? We still haven't seen Shanks fight in the One Piece manga, and we know he's overpowered as he is one of the emperors of the sea. But with Gojo, it's different. We see him fight from the get-go in episode 2, and we see his domain expansion by episode 7. This opens up the imagination for us viewers now that we know what Gojo's abilities are. Granted, we haven't seen what the Six Eyes abilities can truly do, but other than that, we have seen him fight and use his limitless and hollow purple techniques. This allows us to fantasize and have so-called dream fights against other overpowered characters in the verse. The most prominent is of course Gojo versus full-powered Sukuna with all 20 fingers eaten by Yuji. That is the dream fight, and because we have seen both of these overpowered characters fight throughout the story so far, we can let our imagination run wild on the possibility on how that fight is going to turn out. But even besides all of that, Gojo's abilities are unbelievable to see. For instance, in chapter 89, we see Gojo at his best, activating his domain expansion Infinity Void for 0.2 seconds, which allowed him to kill 1,000 transfigured humans and protect the lives of the non-sorcerers. And as the chapter explained, Gojo just estimated it. He was doing all of this on the spot. He has the ability to strategize on the fly and realize what's happening around him. Look at episode 20. He was able to notice straight away that Yuji's power has increased thanks to Todo. And with that knowledge, he was able to assess the situation and prioritize what to do. He is leagues above everyone else in terms of power, cursed ability, and the know-how to think on his feet, which is why, in my opinion, the fanbase doesn't mind having such an overpowered character like Gojo be part of the story. He makes his fights fun to watch by playing around with his opponents, and when he does want to get serious, he shows off unbelievable feats of power, which draws out the best animation in the anime, as well as breathtaking art by Akutami. And finally, the third reason why I believe Gojo is so popular is because of his endgame goal. He wants to reform the world of Jujutsu by having powerful friends brave enough to stand up and change the current ways of Jujutsu. This is where I feel Gojo shows a more vulnerable side to his character, such as in episode 5 where we see Gojo threaten to kill all the higher-ups as he realizes that Yuji and his students were set up in fighting against a special great curse, when they are nowhere near ready for that level at that point in the story. Here you can see that he truly cares about his students and is very protective over them. Gojo wants to be surpassed. That's why he is a teacher. He wants to nurture and help the new generation into becoming powerful sorcerers to overthrow the established infrastructure of the Jujutsu world. He wasn't able to do it, as we find out in the flashback arc that Geto, his closest friend, turns evil after the Toji incident. He is trying to do something that he couldn't do with Geto back in the day, but wants to do it with his students now. Gojo is the most powerful character in the story. His mere presence shifted the balance of power away from the cursed spirits and into the Jujutsu sorcerers. But despite having all of this power, he is still powerless to create serious change. That is what makes him human. His endgame goal is a very human goal. All he wants is change from the old ways that things are being done, which is something that at some point in our lives we have all strived for. We all wanted some change at some point in our lives, whether it's a job, friends, work environment, house, whatever. Even someone like Gojo, who can do literally whatever he wants, has a very human goal which brings him down to earth and humbles him, as he knows he can't do it alone. You need friends to help bring about change, which is what Gojo ultimately wants by the end of the story. And that is why I feel Gojo is so popular amongst the fan base.